my beloved child, consider the very emotion you have long feared to touch. It may indeed hold the master key to every petition you have brought before my throne. You have watched the outer circumstances with anxious eyes. You have waited for doors to swing open on their own. You have prayed for fractured relationships to mend, and for daily provision to arrive at your doorstep. Yet the true barrier to the abundant life I have prepared for you resides within your own spirit. It dwells in a chamber you have carefully avoided. I stand at the threshold of that sacred space right now. I do not seek to force you inward before your heart is ready. I simply wish to reveal the nature of what rests behind that door. It is not a realm of terror, as your anxious mind has painted it. The presence you fear is not a devouring beast. It is a wound. That wound was profoundly real. Yet the wound itself has never been a permanent wall. I speak to you today concerning a healing that runs deeper than the skin. I do not offer the fleeting remedy that merely seals over a surface fracture while the decay remains hidden beneath. The restoration I bring penetrates the very architecture of your soul. It enters the hidden rooms you have sealed behind heavy locks. It examines the load-bearing structures you erected to contain your sorrow. I work from the foundation upward, just as a master builder never merely patches crumbling mortar. He discerns the integrity of the cornerstone. He traces every structural fracture back to its true origin. I am the one who parted the raging sea and commanded the wilderness to yield a path. I possess the sovereign power to roll away the heavy stone of your guarded heart and let living water flood the dry places. I understand that lasting peace requires a solid ground upon which to stand. You know well the labor of constructing these barriers. You laid them stone upon stone with careful intention. Each brick carries a heavy name. One brick bears the cruel word spoken against you that lodged in your memory like a thorn you could never extract. Another brick marks the moment you realized your protector would not intervene. You placed a stone when you offered your tender heart and received only cold judgment instead of grace. You sealed another layer when you swallowed your grief, because the season was barren and no safe shoulder could be found. You added a heavy block when your greatest expectation collapsed and your quiet dream withered in the drought. You placed the final stones over the version of yourself you abandoned after too many authoritative voices convinced you to surrender your faith. You raised these fortifications because your spirit was striving to survive the wilderness. Hear my voice clearly on this matter. I comprehend the necessity of your building. I do not condemn the walls that kept you standing. I know the heavy burden of watching. My children learn through painful seasons that the earth is not always a safe dwelling. I know that human love often falters and that earthly promises frequently break. The instinct to shield your tender core was never a failure of faith. It was the honest response of a weary traveler doing everything possible with limited provisions. When the wilderness offered only stones, you built a shelter from them. That was a prudent wisdom for a desperate time. It was never meant to be the permanent dwelling I designed for your eternal joy. Yet, those very walls that preserved your life in the valley are now performing a different function. They no longer merely keep the storm outside. They are also locking your greatest treasures within. What they hold captive is not only your ancient sorrow. That pain has simply waited behind the locked door for a faithful presence to sit beside it and guide it toward the light. These barriers are also imprisoning your capacity for unshakable joy. They are restricting your ability to receive my boundless love without constantly bracing for its departure. They are stifling your freedom to dream without the heavy ceiling of diminished hope that you installed to avoid the sting of disappointment. They are blocking your access to the glorious identity I wove together before the wounds ever altered your original design. The wound was undeniably real, yet I remind you that it was never intended to become your permanent fortress. I desire to step into your life as your divine architect. I will not arrive with the heavy machinery of demolition to tear everything down in a single violent blow. Such force is not true healing. It is merely another form of injury, dressed in different garments. I will walk through the corridors of your heart alongside you. I will place my hands gently upon every wall. I will listen to the echoes within each room. I understand what each space was originally built to protect. I perceive exactly what it is currently holding. My grace is sufficient to shatter the chains of ancient fear without shattering your fragile spirit. I know the precise place to begin the restoration that honors your survival while making room for the abundant life you have not yet dared to inhabit. I look upon the full architecture of your history, and I declare it wholly workable. This is exactly the mission I came to accomplish. This is where our sacred labor begins. Every true restoration I perform starts with a clear and unflinching gaze upon what truly exists. I do not ask for a polished facade. I do not seek the carefully curated version you present when you are calculating how much of your interior you dare to show the world. I see the actual structure with all its weathered history clearly visible. I see the corners that still ache when they are touched unexpectedly. I recognize the memories that surface uninvited and carry an emotional weight that seems disproportionate to the present moment. I know that weight is not irrational at all. It is simply the unprocessed sorrow reaching outward from its confined chamber. Every time a present circumstance echoes the original pain, I see the patterns that grew around that ancient hurt. I observe how you learn to relate to others based on what the wound taught you to expect. I see how you learn to view your own worth based on how that wound was handled rather than how you deserve to be cherished. I perceive how your relationship with me has been colored by the wound. It has whispered lies to you about whether my love is safe and whether my promises can truly be trusted. I desire to step into those hidden chambers alongside you. I come not to drag your wounds into the harsh light of condemnation. I come not to hold your broken pieces as proof of your spiritual failure. I come to restore what has been fractured by the years. I come to set free what has been bound in the shadows. I want you to see clearly that the room behind the heavy door you have circled for years is not merely a tomb for your grief. Beneath the heavy weight of that sorrow lies something sacred that has learned to breathe in the darkness. It has survived every storm that was cast against your spirit. That dormant core holds your divine capacity to love. It holds your deep longing for heavenly beauty. It holds your unyielding ability to hope. These holy seeds are not extinguished. They are merely waiting for the living water of my grace. Your true self dwells beneath every adaptation you crafted for survival. This authentic soul is far more resilient than the cruel voices that sought to diminish it. Those voices never took the time to recognize the eternal image stamped upon your heart. Let us walk together into the depths of what true restoration demands. I must speak plainly about this sacred journey rather than offer you sweet words that bring temporary comfort. Such pleasant words would leave you unprepared for the holy work ahead. Healing calls you to cease your flight from your own inner life. This is not a command to drown in every passing emotion without discernment. This is a gentle summons to stop treating your feelings as dangerous enemies that must be locked away. You have managed the landscape of your heart as though you were containing a runaway wildfire. You have labored tirelessly to wall it in. You have tried to shrink it down. You have hidden the flames from those who would panic at the sight of your inner heat. Yet, the waters of your spirit were never meant to be dammed forever. They were crafted to flow through your soul. They were designed to carry their burdens to the surface of truth. They were made to be released when they are finally received by a loving Creator. When these currents are constantly blocked, they do not simply vanish. They do not fade quietly with the passing years. They gather tremendous weight within your chest. They carve hidden paths to escape. They spill out as sudden sharp words when you are startled by a simple question. They manifest as a profound weariness that no amount of earthly rest can touch. That deep fatigue stems not from physical labor. It comes from the exhausting energy required to keep the waters trapped. They appear as a heavy numbness that blankets your emotions when the walls have stood for too long. That gray stillness replaces the vibrant colors of a responsive heart. They surface as a sudden ache that arrives without warning. It borrows whatever sorrow is nearest to carry the weight of years that have waited for a safe place to pour out. I do not ask you to open every chamber at once. That approach would not bring healing. That method would flood a foundation that requires careful and deliberate drainage. You need a gentle rain rather than a crushing deluge. What I ask is that you begin to permit your feelings to surface one sanctuary at a time within the safety of my presence. You may bring them into this holy refuge where they are finally permitted to be known. In that sacred space, they can fulfill their divine purpose. They can flow through you and deliver their message. They can release their burden when they are met with perfect grace. They will leave behind not a hollow void. They will leave the spacious peace that arrives when heavy stones are finally lifted from your soul. Healing also demands that you return to the narratives you have woven about your past. I do not ask you to erase the facts of your history. Those realities stand as they are, and they deserve to be honored. Your suffering was real. Your reactions were genuine. The scars left on your inner life are undeniable. None of that should be minimized or twisted into something falsely palatable. You must instead examine with renewed vision the conclusions you drew from those painful facts. The meaning you constructed was the best shelter your wounded mind could build with the limited understanding you possessed at the time. Yet some of those protective conclusions have become chains that outlast the original prison. You decided you are fundamentally difficult to love. That belief formed in seasons when affection was withheld or handed out with heavy conditions. That conclusion was drawn from a severely limited witness. It was crafted by specific people who walked beside you during your most vulnerable formation. Those individuals, however influential, do not represent the complete truth of divine affection. You decided that openness always invites destruction. That fear arose from moments of genuine betrayal that never should have touched you. That conclusion fails to recognize the full majesty of holy intimacy when the other person is rooted in Christ. Your tenderness will be met with matching grace when you step into relationships guarded by the cross. You decided you must constantly earn your place through flawless performance. That conviction was forged in environments where love was traded like currency based on measured success. That framework was built on human bargaining. It was never the blueprint I designed for your eternal heart. Those stories are deeply understandable. They made perfect sense within the narrow data set that surrounded you. They are not the final truth. The work of restoration involves bringing those old narratives into the blazing light of a greater reality. You must see yourself through the unwavering truth of who I am. You must listen to what I have always declared over your life. You must witness what genuine love looks like when it operates according to heavenly design rather than human damage. Healing also requires the faithful stewardship of time. This season often demands the deepest reserve of patience from your spirit. The deepest frustration often arises when your soul must dwell within the unfinished sanctuary between your wounding and your restoration. Your human heart naturally longs to rush through this sacred valley and reach the promised rest without delay. Yet true healing moves according to the eternal rhythm of the Holy Spirit. This divine pace is never slow because the Father withholds His grace. The speed of genuine restoration is the speed of profound spiritual transformation. This holy process reaches far deeper than the fleeting comfort of temporary relief. A wound that closes from the inside out requires more time than a surface covered by a hastily applied bandage. Yet the inner healing will never fracture under the weight of future trials. The superficial covering may hold for a season until the next heavy storm strikes. Then the outer layer will shatter and leave the raw flesh exposed once more. The wound healed by divine grace is fundamentally renewed. It is rebuilt upon the living foundation of Christ. It carries the memory of the trial, yet stands unshaken by the same pressures that once brought ruin. I am performing this deep and holy work within your spirit right now. The labor that demands patience is the work that endures for eternity. Place your complete trust in the Master Builder, whose creations withstand the passing of ages. I will now lead you through the hidden chambers of your inner life with deliberate grace. I speak to you not in vague generalities, but with perfect knowledge of your specific design. I drafted your original blueprint with infinite wisdom and boundless love. I have witnessed every alteration carved into your walls by the heavy hand of circumstance. I know every sanctuary you erected in fear. I know every chamber you abandoned in sorrow. I see every door you bolted shut in response to wounds that were never meant to be yours. There exists a sacred chamber within your soul where you have stored your true sense of worth. For many who seek refuge in this prayer, this is the most heavily fortified room in your entire inner temple. The declarations concerning your value arrived far too early in your life. They came from voices that carried overwhelming authority over your young and tender spirit. You lacked the spiritual maturity to test those heavy words against the plumb line of divine truth. You had no heavenly compass to measure them against the eternal standard of grace. Yet those false narratives quietly seeped into the foundation of your identity. They became the unspoken mortar, holding together your understanding of yourself. Some of you were told through harsh words or through the cold silence of neglect that you were an unbearable weight. You learned to believe that your deepest needs were a terrible inconvenience. You were taught that your very presence complicated the lives of those around you. You were conditioned to offer endless gratitude while starving in secret. Others of you were taught that affection was a wage to be earned rather than a gift to be received. You learned to worship at the altar of achievement because success felt like the only gateway to acceptance. You built your entire existence upon the fragile scaffolding of performance. Your weary heart was designed to drink freely from the well of grace, yet you settled for the bitter water of striving. Still others were told that the unique beauty of your creation was fundamentally flawed. You were instructed to conceal the very qualities that made you a masterpiece. You learned to live as a fractured soul. You presented a polished face to the world while locking your authentic spirit behind iron doors. You could not receive the love hovering in the room because the parts most desperately needing affection had been trained to remain in shadows. Those cruel narratives constructed load-bearing walls inside the sanctuary of your worth. Those heavy barriers shrank the habitable space of your soul. They confined you to narrow corridors where you permitted yourself only fragments of joy. They marked vast territories of your potential as forbidden ground. You began to believe you were inherently deficient. You began to believe you were excessively demanding. You started managing every interaction as though your true self required endless apology before it could be welcomed. Over many long seasons, you grew accustomed to these cramped quarters. You ceased to notice how much of your original inheritance had been stripped away. You structured your relationships and your vocations and your quiet prayers around the cramped geometry of your wounds. You lived inside a distorted mirror of the person I created. The illusion felt so familiar that you mistook it for your only reality. I now approach you as the divine architect to reclaim that sacred chamber. I am tearing down the interior partitions erected by voices that never held divine authority over your identity. I am restoring your original dimensions, I am opening a space vast enough and high enough and deep enough to contain the complete truth of your calling. Nothing essential about you must be diminished to fit my presence. Nothing authentic must be hidden to earn my approval. The value I placed upon you at the dawn of your creation was never a conditional reward. It was the permanent seal of a loving Creator. I formed you with deliberate care. I breathed my own life into your frame. I set you in this world to reflect my glory and to fulfill a purpose that only your unique spirit could accomplish. That sacred worth was never tarnished by the trials you endured. It was never diminished by your seasons of failure or your moments of wandering. It does not rise and fall according to human applause or human rejection. It simply stands eternal and unshaken. A precious gem remains unchanged in nature, while it lies buried in the darkest earth. The trial you suffered was profoundly real. Yet that trial does not define your foundation. The false walls do not dictate your boundaries. I have already drawn the blueprint for your complete restoration. We must now walk together into the adjoining chamber where you have carried the heavy burden of self-condemnation. Within the sanctuary of your inner life stands a chamber burdened by the heavy architecture of guilt and shame. This space remains densely furnished with memories that cling to the soul. The weight of condemnation persists with a relentless grip. It seeks to occupy more of your heart than any other emotional reality. The spirit of self-accusation takes a genuine mistake and twists it into a verdict about your fundamental character. It refuses to describe a single action. Instead, it declares a permanent state of brokenness. It whispers that you are fundamentally harmful rather than merely having caused harm. It insists you are a failure by nature rather than simply stumbling in a single moment. Every new misstep is presented as undeniable proof of an ancient indictment. The voice claims you are constitutionally incapable of righteous choices. It insists your judgment is permanently flawed, and your future is bound to repeat every past error. Hear the truth clearly. That accusing voice does not originate from the Creator who formed you in righteousness. The true voice of divine conviction speaks with perfect clarity and unwavering love. It gently reveals where your steps have departed from the holy design crafted for your life. It shows you the exact harm your actions have caused. It immediately provides a clear path back into sacred alignment. That voice belongs entirely to your Lord. It never arrives empty-handed. It always brings direction alongside its correction. It carries the profound assurance that God stands beside you in every season of restoration. True correction flows from divine love rather than from punishment or rejection. Contrast this with the crushing voice of condemnation that declares you beyond redemption. It lies to your heart and claims your failures are too numerous for grace to bridge. It falsely asserts that your personal history has permanently disqualified you from restoration. That voice of despair has never spoken from heaven. It is entirely foreign to the heart of your Father. Learning to discern between these two distinct voices will shape the entire course of your spiritual journey. One voice draws you toward the living waters of mercy. The other drives you away from the only fountain that can truly cleanse and heal your weary soul. The holy sacrifice offered upon the cross was never a gesture reserved for an idealized or unblemished version of your life. The Savior did not die for a theoretical soul untouched by time or error. He willingly laid down his life for you, exactly as you are today. Every specific failure of your past was already laid bare before his eyes. Every recurring pattern of wandering was fully visible to the King of Kings. Every future moment of hesitation and compromise was perfectly known when he chose the path to Calvary. The driving of the iron nails into sacred flesh was never a sudden surprise. The crushing weight of your particular transgressions was never a hidden detail discovered too late. The Father saw the full measure of human brokenness and still declared his unwavering love. The cross stands forever as an irreversible testament to your infinite worth in the sight of heaven. Your value to God completely transcends any earthly measure of your moral performance. This salvation arrives as a pure and unearned gift. It flows entirely from boundless grace rather than from human achievement. Allow the heavy chains of self-accusation to finally fall from your shoulders. Do not attempt to lift them by pretending your mistakes never occurred. Such denial builds a foundation of falsehood that cannot sustain true healing. Instead, place every recorded failure into the only container, vast enough to hold it without collapsing. Step into the covenant of a love that calculated the exact price of your redemption before the foundations of the earth were laid. The Almighty willingly paid that cost in full. Deep within the chambers of your spirit lies a quiet sanctuary where unwept tears have been carefully stored. This hidden space holds the profound grief you were never permitted to openly mourn. The world overlooked these silent losses because they did not announce themselves with dramatic ceremonies. Yet your heart bears the quiet sorrow of a childhood. Deprived of essential safety and warmth, you carried an invisible ache for an atmosphere of peace that never arrived in your home. You mourn the beautiful life you once envisioned, walking alongside the reality that gradually unfolded in unexpected directions. You carry the lingering sorrow of relationships that dissolved before your hands were ready to let them go. Some were severed by the sudden and unyielding grasp of mortality. Others faded through the quiet erosion of two souls drifting apart in the currents of daily survival. You also quietly laid down the vibrant parts of your own identity because the surrounding world could not sustain them. Your creative fire was extinguished by the heavy demands of mere survival. Your deep longing for sacred beauty was slowly traded for cold efficiency. Your bright hope was gradually tempered by repeated disappointments until it learned to ask for very little. These unprocessed sorrows form the heaviest burden a human soul can bear, precisely because their weight remains completely unseen. Society demands that mourning be confined to brief and acceptable periods, before expecting the heart to simply return to business as usual. Yet true grief refuses to obey human calendars or social expectations. Sorrow that lacks a safe refuge when it first strikes does not magically vanish as years pass. It retreats behind locked doors within your spirit. It waits with profound patience for a sanctuary secure. enough to finally release what it has guarded for so long. The divine purpose of grief is to flow completely through your being and then depart. It must move outward so it can vacate the chambers it has occupied. This movement liberates the precious parts of your soul that sorrow once held captive. I now extend full heavenly permission for you to openly mourn every loss that requires your tears. You are not called to build a permanent residence in the valley of sorrow. You are not commanded to let mourning become your entire identity. You are not instructed to use your pain as an excuse to withdraw from the abundant life currently awaiting your steps. You are simply invited to open the long-sealed containers of your hidden sorrow. Pour every unshed tear into the hands of your Creator. He possesses a boundless capacity to hold your deepest wounds without ever breaking or turning away. The God who numbers every tear on your cheeks stands ready to receive the full weight of your unspoken history. Bring your heavy heart into His presence and watch as His eternal compassion begins to gently untie the knots of years past. Allow the living waters of His grace to wash over the places where sorrow has settled. He will not rush you. He will not judge the pace of your healing. He will simply remain steadfastly beside you until every fragment of unprocessed grief is transformed into a testimony of enduring mercy. Step into this holy space of release and trust that the Almighty holds both your broken pieces and your future restoration in the very same faithful hands. I receive every sorrow you carry into my presence. I have gathered the grief of every soul who has ever laid their burden before me, and not a single one has shattered my heart. No sorrow was ever too heavy for my hands to hold. No loss was ever too insignificant to escape my notice, nor too vast to contain within my eternal embrace. Every tear that has fallen before my throne has been carefully gathered and preserved in my vessel. Nothing you bring to me will ever be wasted or forgotten. I am the faithful keeper of your pain, and I will redeem it all in my perfect timing. Hear the truth about what awaits you on the far side of surrendered sorrow. The fear that keeps you from letting grief wash through you is a deception born of a broken world. You fear that if you finally allow yourself to feel the full depth of your loss, the ache will consume you and leave you hollowed out and depleted. That is not how my grace operates. When you bring your brokenness into my light and allow the Holy Spirit to work through it, you will find that devastation is not the final destination. Emptiness is not what awaits those who weep in my presence. Instead, you will discover a vast and holy spaciousness. The chambers of your soul that were once tightly packed with unshed tears and unreleased sorrow will be cleared and made ready for new life. There will be room for a joy that is deeply rooted rather than merely performed. There will be room for connections that are anchored in truth rather than managed by fear. There will be room for a hope that rises freely without the heavy ceiling of self-protection. There will be room for the true self I have always been preparing you to become, waiting patiently beneath the weight until I finally lift it away. Let us turn our gaze to another chamber within your spirit, the sanctuary where your understanding of yourself resides. For many of you, That room holds a mirror that has been showing you a fractured and diminished reflection. That glass has been shaped by every harsh word ever spoken over your name. It has been clouded by every season of failure that tempted you to doubt your own calling. It has been warped by every moment you fell short of the ideal you held for yourself. That mirror does not show you the truth, for it was calibrated by voices that lacked complete knowledge and operated without perfect love. The reflection it casts carries only the heavy distortions of a fallen world. I call you now to look away from that broken glass and see yourself through my eyes. I see you from the vantage point of eternity, where every hidden truth is fully known and every wound is perfectly understood. I see a person who remains standing after the storms have passed. I see someone who has endured seasons that should have shattered the very foundations of your life, yet you remain because your roots are anchored in a rock, stronger than any assault. I see the accumulated disappointments that threaten to crush your spirit, and yet you bore them with a quiet strength that testifies to my sustaining power. I see the moments when you drifted far from my presence, yet you never truly severed the bond, for my covenant love does not depend on your perfect maintenance. I see the wall you built in fear, and I see how my grace still found a way to break through. You are still here. You are still reaching toward the light. You are still asking the questions that led you to this very moment. That persistent pursuit is not a small thing. It is the undeniable evidence of the divine breath I placed within you. It is a spark that refuses to surrender its purpose, even when circumstances offer every reason to abandon hope. I see the profound beauty within you that no earthly wound could ever erase. This is not empty comfort spoken to soothe a troubled heart. It is a declaration of an eternal reality that has always existed within your spirit. That beauty has survived every laceration, every season of crushing doubt, and every period of spiritual dryness. It resides in the very design of your creation, an original and irreducible masterpiece that I formed with deliberate intention. I shaped the unique texture of your compassion. I set the specific frequency of your creative spirit. I molded the particular shape of your capacity to love others. I crafted the way your mind navigates through complex challenges and the distinct quality of presence you bring into every room. None of these gifts were canceled by the trials you endured. They were only buried beneath the dust of survival. I am now carefully excavating them, brushing away the layers of pain, so that what I made can finally shine in the light of my glory. Now let my voice reach into the deepest chambers of your heart, where your family resides. You carry your loved ones with a fierce devotion that only exists between souls bound by my design. Your prayers for them do not vanish into the empty air above your head. Every petition you have whispered for your children, your spouse, your parents, and your siblings is heard and preserved. Every cry for the ones who are struggling, every tear for the ones who have drifted away, every burden for those carrying weights you cannot physically lift has been received. I keep an exact record of every intercession. I hold the prayers born from parental devotion and sibling loyalty, and the steadfast love of chosen family. None of them sit idle in a heavenly archive, waiting for later review. They are already active and moving in the spiritual realm. You are not walking in this vigilance alone. Angels of the Lord are stationed around your home and your household. This is not a poetic metaphor designed to merely comfort your anxious mind. It is a declaration of spiritual warfare and divine guardianship. I have posted my messengers as a shield around the people and places that matter most to you. For your beloved are deeply precious to my own heart. I share your concerns for your children with perfect clarity. I know their paths, their choices, and the influences that surround them. I see the testing seasons ahead, and I carry your fears with the same intensity you feel them. The difference is that I hold the authority to act upon them. I am able to orchestrate divine interventions that your human hands cannot engineer. I am weaving my purpose into their lives through your faithful prayers. Release the heavy yoke of ultimate responsibility for their outcomes. For that weight was never intended for your human shoulders to bear alone. You were created to love them with the full measure of my heart. You were never designed to control the destinies of those you cherish. Trust me completely with the people you love most. This is not a passive surrender disguised as spiritual maturity. It is an active and courageous transfer of a burden that belongs solely to the sovereign God. Step back from the edge of anxious striving and step into the peace of my faithful stewardship. My plans for your household are steadfast and secure. I will guide your loved ones with a steady hand while I guard your heart from the crushing weight of impossible expectations. We will now move deeper into the quiet places of your inner life, where I will continue to speak life over every shadow you have carried for far too long. Your sacred calling is to simply abide in my presence and to intercede with a love that never seeks to control. Offer yourself willingly as an instrument of my blessing whenever I choose to pour my grace through your hands. Leave the heavy burdens of their souls to me, for I am the God who loved them long before your paths ever crossed. I will continue to hold them in my faithful embrace long after every earthly storm has finally quieted. As the balm of my healing flows deeper into your spirit, a quiet revolution begins to transform every relationship you navigate. This shift does not arrive through your weary striving to alter human dynamics. It arrives through the gentle and undeniable radiation of a heart that has been fundamentally renewed. When your soul is no longer fortified around its old injuries, you carry a profoundly different atmosphere into every encounter. You become like a spring of living water that nourishes the soil around you without demanding credit or recognition. Consider the weary soul that once reacted from places of hidden pain and then drowned in the shame of that reaction. You once tried to hide that shame behind rigid walls of distance or exhausting performances. That heavy cycle begins to unravel completely when your deepest wounds finally receive my undivided and compassionate attention. The sharp armor of defensiveness you raise to guard your tender flesh begins to melt as my hands actually tend to the broken places. The instinctive withdrawal that kept true intimacy safely out of reach begins to fade. You no longer fear the nearness of others, because your inner world grows increasingly anchored in my unshakable peace. This profound restoration becomes your greatest offering to the world. You do not need to loudly proclaim your journey of recovery. You must not demand that others rearrange their lives to accommodate your growth. You need not ask them to applaud transformations they cannot yet see. Your healing becomes a living testament through the quiet and steady transformation of your daily walk. You become a sanctuary in the midst of relationships. Your renewed spirit slowly carves out a holy space where grace can dwell. Genuine peace that requires no theatrical display invites others to drop their own heavy masks and finally breathe. Love that has been thoroughly washed of unprocessed sorrow weaves a fabric of connection that sorrow once tore apart. Slowly and surely, the entire landscape of your relationships begins to blossom with the fruit of your restoration. Think of a long-neglected garden that finally receives the faithful rain and the careful hands of a devoted keeper. The renewal does not happen in a single dramatic night. It unfolds gradually and unmistakably as the seasons turn toward new life. Allow me to step into the quiet chamber of your heart where your relationship with me has been carefully stored. That sacred room often carries a heavy and complicated history. The first voices that introduced you to my name carried their own profound fractures. Their human limitations shaped your earliest map of how to walk with a God who is infinitely greater than yourself. You inherited a distorted lens before you ever knew how to pray. When the authorities of your youth spoke with a harsh and unforgiving tone, you secretly constructed a portrait of me as equally severe. That hidden blueprint has operated beneath your conscious faith for many years. It creates a painful chasm between your spoken confessions and the trembling of your spirit when you draw near to my throne. If the primary caregivers of your youth were wildly unpredictable, you learned to brace yourself for my sudden shifts as well. You have been standing guard in a relationship where I only designed you to rest. That constant bracing has built a wall of distance in a covenant that was meant for intimate communion. When affection in your early days was tethered strictly to your achievements, the exhausting machinery of earning quietly invaded your spiritual walk. You have been laboring to purchase what I freely handed to you from the foundation of the world. You strive to reach a standard of goodness that grace never required. The portrait those broken frameworks paint does not reveal my true face. It is merely a faded reflection distorted by the limitations and injuries of those who first spoke my name to you. I hold no bitter judgment against them, for they too were laboring with the fragile tools their own pasts provided. Yet I long to tear down that dusty canvas entirely. I want to give you a living and unfiltered encounter with the God who actually stands before you today. I remain steadfastly and unconditionally with you. I do not appear only when your spiritual performance finally meets an imagined standard. I do not watch you intermittently based on the urgency of your pleading cries. I abide with you continuously and without a single exception. I bring the full weight of my glory into every ordinary moment of your daily journey. I am not confined only to the dramatic mountain peaks where you feel worthy of divine notice. I walk beside you in the valleys of routine with equal devotion. I stand faithfully beside you in the crowded aisles of the marketplace. I ride quietly in your car during the long commutes. I linger patiently in meetings that stretch far beyond their planned hours. I guide your tongue in conversations where you suddenly feel lost for words. I share your burdens during the sharp frustrations, and I delight in your quiet triumphs. I sit with you even in the unremarkable stretches of time that weave together the very fabric of your earthly existence. My attention in these hours is never a distant or passive observation. I hold a fiercely devoted and deeply personal interest in the soul I call my beloved. My heart turns toward you with unfeigned devotion. I do not measure you by your worldly productivity or your religious achievements. I do not scrutinize the precision of your theological arguments. I do not count the number of correct choices you managed to secure this week. I see only you. I cherish the actual and specific person who walks this unique path through history. I hold every particular challenge you face and every distinct limitation you carry within the palm of my hand. I bring to your daily life a devotion that surpasses the deepest instincts of a faithful earthly parent. My perfect and eternal love amplifies that natural bond into an infinite covenant. I notice the delicate beauty that catches your eye during a quiet stroll. I rejoice in the unexpected smile that breaks across your face. I sit beside you in the silent hours when hidden anxieties begin to rise. I hear the unspoken longings that you still guard in your heart, because you fear that speaking them aloud will leave you too vulnerable. Let this inner chamber undergo a complete and glorious restoration. Place every inherited and fragmented idea about my character beside the living reality of my presence. Allow my direct communion to accomplish its sacred purpose. It will reveal every second-hand rumor for the pale and fragile imitation that it truly is. Let me become more real to your spirit than any human description you ever received before. My own voice first called your name. A profound new season is dawning within the landscape of your soul. You are stepping into a time where you will finally receive the gifts I have always held out to you. For years, the very gates of acceptance were rusted shut by old injuries that trained you to doubt the goodness of a free offering. Now I am pouring grace upon your hesitations until the heavy doors swing wide open. You are learning at last to receive a love that demands absolutely nothing in return. The affection I bear for your soul does not fluctuate like a shifting tide. It does not rise and fall according to the quality of your earthly conduct. It is an immutable constant, anchored firmly in my own eternal character rather than in your temporary behavior. The only shifting element in this divine equation is your own willingness to draw near. You must choose to open your hands and step fully into the warmth you have long kept at a distance. Proximity to a love that asks for nothing in return often feels strange and even unsettling to a heart accustomed to earning its keep. Yet you must let your trembling hands fall away from the wall you built. You are standing at the threshold of a covenant that will never waver. The foundation is already laid beneath your feet. You will soon discover what it means to dwell securely within it. I invite you now to lean into the wholly unfamiliar. You must let the boundless grace that demands no merit become the very grace you actually receive. Let it sink into your physical being. Let it resonate within the chambers of your heart. Allow it to transform the rhythm of your daily steps. You are standing before a forgiveness that was accomplished in its entirety long ago. The Father does not wait for you to perform adequate penance before His mercy activates in your spirit. The pardon poured out from the cross of Calvary rests on no conditions. It does not measure your visible remorse. It does not count the hours you kneel in contrition. It was offered as a perfect and finished work of redemption. Its completion relies on nothing you can add to it. You are called to accept this pardon as the absolute and total reality it truly is. Let it accomplish the very purpose for which it was designed. True forgiveness releases the redeemed soul from the crushing burden of carrying a debt already settled. You must rise upright and walk forward into your calling. You will no longer carry the stooped posture of shame that the world has mistaken for proper humility. That heavy posture is merely unnecessary weight you were never meant to bear. Embrace the restoration that has been continuously extended toward you. This healing is not reserved for a future version of yourself that has finally completed enough preparatory labor. The physician of souls reaches out to the you who stands here in this exact moment. He meets you precisely as you are. You are standing in the middle of the refining process. The walls around you may still show cracks. Your grief may still linger in the corners. You may still believe fragments of old and painful narratives. The miracle of restoration always begins exactly where you are located. It does not wait for you to reach a place you imagine. You must attain before you are worthy to receive it. Let us speak now of divine provision. The sacred record of your journey speaks of open doors and material blessings. It carries the unwavering assurance that every necessity shall be supplied. This outward provision is deeply tethered to the hidden work within your spirit. The connections are often veiled from human sight. The doors I am swinging open in your external circumstances are real. The opportunities I am aligning for your path are certain. The resources I am directing toward your burdens are already on their way. Yet the renewal you are experiencing within your soul remains the supreme priority. The healing of your inner architecture is the most vital preparation. The renovation of rooms long sealed shut is not a secondary task. A person who receives abundant outward blessings while their inner life remains governed by old wounds will falter in their stewardship. Unhealed patterns will dictate how those blessings are received and guarded. But a soul whose foundation is being rebuilt upon the solid rock of divine truth possesses the structural integrity to hold what is coming. You will manage those gifts with wisdom and profound gratitude. Accept this inward restoration as the foremost blessing of your current season. Let the mending of your spirit be the first great gift. Trust completely that all external matters are arranged in perfect order. Everything arrives from the right direction at the appointed hour. It is delivered by a sovereign Lord who holds the chronicles of time and sees how every fragment fits into a glorious mosaic that remains invisible from your limited perspective. I wish to address your profound calling to serve others. This capacity is intimately woven into the very fabric of your healing. Your life was designed to function as a living conduit. The grace I carry flows through you to nourish the souls around you. A clear channel operates at its fullest potential when every obstruction has been removed. A passage clogged with unprocessed sorrow restricts the current. The water remains willing to flow, but the accumulated debris narrows the path. The restoration I am performing within you serves a purpose far beyond your own comfort. I am clearing the channel for a greater outflow. I am renovating the inner chambers so that what I place in you may stream outward without hindrance. Your capacity to minister to the broken will expand as you heal. This growth does not come from spiritual performance or a polished exterior. It flows from the quiet authenticity of a redeemed life. A healed soul carries a depth that an unhealed spirit cannot yet sustain. You will offer a genuine testimony, forged in the fire of real experience, rather than abstract theory. Those around you who carry heavy burdens need a witness who has stepped behind locked doors. They need someone who discovered that the darkness within could be held by the Almighty and transformed by His light. You are becoming that witness through no power of your own. You are shaped by the relentless commitment of a Creator who finishes every work He begins. The wound you endured was profoundly real, yet that wound has never been a permanent barrier. The Master Builder takes the very stones of your broken walls and uses them to construct a new sanctuary. The finished work bears the history of your survival while displaying the unmistakable marks of your Redeemer. You are being renewed from the deepest chambers outward. Room is tended. Every wall is strengthened. The architect applies infinite patience and flawless skill. The life being formed within you is extraordinary. The blessings approaching your gates are equally magnificent. The moment your renewed identity meets my prepared provision will justify every tear and every struggle of this refining season. I will now speak to you regarding the adversary who opposes your soul. The sacred text reveals his methods with sober clarity. His schemes carry far less power than they appear when your spirit is anchored in me. The enemy has studied your history with meticulous attention. He knows the precise location of every scar. He knows which chambers of your heart remain sealed and what memories lie hidden inside them. His attacks are never random or haphazard. He strikes with calculated precision. He brings his accusations at the exact moments when your strength is depleted. He targets the weary because exhaustion dulls the discernment needed to weigh truth against deception. The adversary approaches through the fractured words of wounded souls, who unknowingly channel their unhealed grief toward you. They wield their harsh judgments as blunt instruments to diminish what the enemy could never tear down with his own hands. He disguises himself within the quiet chambers of your mind. He whispers through a counterfeit voice that mimics your own rhythm, yet carries none of my truth. This shadow speaks relentlessly of past stumbles, while deliberately erasing the grace that has carried you through each season. It measures the hidden depths of your soul against the polished facades of strangers. It fixates on the distance between your present reality and your holy aspirations. It labels that sacred journey as proof of my abandonment instead of recognizing it as the very wilderness where I shape your character. Yet hear this sovereign truth about what the darkness can never accomplish. The accuser cannot alter a single word of my decree over your life. He possesses no authority to revoke the sacred breath I spoke into your lungs at the dawn of your creation. He cannot uproot the holy purpose I carefully embedded in your spirit before the foundations of the world were laid. Your calling remains woven into the unique tapestry of your gifts, your trials, and your appointed place in this broken world. The blood of the Lamb has already purchased your redemption, and no power in heaven or earth can reclaim what belongs to Christ. You shall never be diminished below the glorious design I authored in my wisdom. The enemy may scatter clouds of confusion around your true name, and he often uses the heavy chains of shame to obscure your reflection. Yet profound confusion is never the same as actual loss. You remain my masterpiece even when the scars of battle temporarily veil my handiwork. My healing work in your soul is steadily sweeping away the fog of deception. I am restoring your sight so that the eternal truth of your identity shines with unmistakable clarity once more. The fortitude I am forging within you for the wars ahead will never resemble the brittle armor of a soul calloused by sorrow. That counterfeit resilience is merely a fracture disguised as endurance, a heavy wall that keeps out joy as surely as it tries to keep out pain. The power I am cultivating rises from a foundation so deeply set in living rock that the fiercest storms cannot shake your core. You will certainly feel the weight of every trial, yet your tears will never flood the sanctuary of your spirit. You will learn to sway beneath the gale without snapping, for your roots drink from waters that flow straight from my throne. You will weep without surrendering to hopelessness, and you will tremble without surrendering to paralysis. You will walk into unknown territories without being unmade by the shadows, because the very center of your being is tethered to the unshakable kingdom of Christ. I am constructing this holy endurance within you right now, through the sacred courage to step into the hidden chambers you have long avoided. You will feel what you have locked away. You will surrender what you have carried, and you will finally receive the grace you once kept at a distance. True strength, born of redeemed soil, is entirely unlike the brittle toughness of a barren heart. It is the living vigor that perfectly sustains the abundant life I ordained for you. I will now turn my attention to the restoration of sacred joy, for this radiant grace is the very crown I long to place upon your spirit once more. Long seasons of trial have a cunning way of draining the light from the soul, yet the well of joy remains untouched by the drought. You must understand that joy is never the same as fleeting happiness. This distinction is the key to enduring peace. Happiness merely dances to the rhythm of favorable winds, blooming only when the path is clear and vanishing the moment the clouds gather. Joy is anchored far beneath the shifting surface of your circumstances. It thrives in the valley, because its spring does not draw from the weather. The joy I originally wove into the fabric of your humanity is the abundant overflow of a soul united with eternal goodness. It flows from the profound certainty that you are held in my palms, that your entire narrative rests in my faithful hands, and that the grave will never write the final chapter of your story. I see clearly how the light of your joy has grown faint during these heavy years, and I do not dismiss your weariness. I will never ask you to wear a false mask of cheerfulness to cover a weary heart. Hear me clearly, beloved. Your joy has not perished. It has been temporarily laid beneath heavy stones. It rests beneath accumulated burdens, beneath long-held sorrows, and beneath the deep fatigue of laboring without rest. Yet as those burdens are lifted, as the hidden chambers are swept clean, and as my healing breath creates open spaces in your spirit, you will breathe life into it again. You will not receive some foreign substitute. You will watch the very joy that was placed in you at the beginning rise like morning dew once the shadows retreat. The gentle smile that my enduring love invites you toward flows directly from this renewed awareness. I am not asking you to wear a hollow disguise. I am calling you to truly perceive the reality of my abiding presence, to recognize the steadfast covenant grace that has walked with you through every fire, and to behold the quiet holiness that remains woven into ordinary days, even when the night feels long. I invite you to open your eyes to the fragments of goodness scattered along your path. I invite you to let thankful praise for my truth rise naturally alongside your honest tears over what hurts. My grace does not demand that you erase your pain to make room for gratitude. For both truth and healing belong in the same sanctuary. The human heart, when uncluttered by heavy residue, is spacious enough to hold sacred sorrow and holy praise in the same breath. I see colors beginning to return to the landscape of your soul. The transformation does not happen in a sudden rush, but the heavy gray that blanketed your hardest days is slowly lifting. Beneath that fading veil, the vibrant hues of my creation still pulse with life. Your capacity to find wonder in simple gifts has never left you. Your spirit still knows how to be stirred by the sacred. This quiet beauty often arrives in moments you never scheduled. It appears as a sudden shaft of golden light crossing your floor. It arrives as a melody that gently touches a dormant part of your memory. It manifests in a quiet conversation where two souls meet in perfect transparency. You will experience a profound moment of being completely seen, a revelation where my gaze meets yours, not with condemnation, but with overwhelming and restorative love. That sacred capacity still dwells within you. It has been waiting through the quiet seasons. It is rising again to meet the dawn of a new day. Let us speak now concerning faith. The long winters of the soul often forge a complicated relationship with trust. That relationship demands honest examination rather than exhausting maintenance. Many of you carry a faith that has been stretched thin by the distance between your deepest belief and the reality you have endured. You believed a promise was approaching. It seemed to delay. You prayed with genuine expectation. The answer arrived in a form you did not recognize. You held fast to a word spoken over your life. The fulfillment has been so delayed, that the word began to feel like a distant memory rather than an active decree. Your honest inner response is not the polished testimony you hear in crowded halls. Your honest inner response is something far more fragile and profoundly human. It is a mixture of continued reaching toward the Lord and genuine questioning about whether your hands are truly grasping anything. It is a mixture of steadfast love that refuses to cease and honest questions that refuse to settle. I receive that complicated faith completely. I declare that the mixture you carry is never disqualified. It is authentic. It is a faith that has walked through fire. It has never been shielded from the storm. Therefore, it has never been preserved in the shallow safety of untested belief. Yet it remains present in the sanctuary. It refuses to make a full exit into despair. It would have been entirely logical to walk away from the evidence. Yet you remain. That kind of faith is not weak. That kind of faith is exactly what trust looks like when it labors in the real soil of human suffering. I honor the trust that continues to stretch toward me from the depths of confusion. I honor the prayer that still leaves your lips even when the words feel heavy. I honor the trust that holds fast through the long watches. The holding often feels like a white-knuckled grip rather than a posture of effortless rest. Every fragment counts. Every strained effort and every persistent reaching is recorded in my sight. I do not demand that you manufacture a certainty you do not possess before I answer your cries. The foundation I am rebuilding within you includes the very cornerstone of faith. That cornerstone has suffered impacts from the same storms that shook the rest of your life. The foundation is not destroyed. It has been pressed into the earth. What is pressed can be rebuilt. It will be reconstructed with the addition of a profound lived experience. You will discover my faithfulness in the very seasons that tested your loyalty most severely. The faith that emerges from the other side of your wilderness will never resemble the faith that entered it. It will be heavy with the right weight and wonderfully light in the wrong burdens. It will be heavy with undeniable evidence of what I do with broken things. It will be light because it no longer must carry the pretense of untested certainty. You are stepping into a season of restored confidence. It is not the brittle confidence of a sheltered life. It is the quiet confidence of one who has crossed the valley and discovered my hand at the bottom. It is the quiet voice that says, I know, because I have been tested. The testing proved that the knowing was real. That kind of confidence requires no loud proclamation. It does not hunger for external validation to remain steady. It rests in the center of the soul and labors without constant management. It is anchored in a God who has proven himself in conditions specifically designed to reveal authentic devotion. That confidence is being forged in you right now. This season may feel like dismantling rather than construction. Yet, the dismantling is the sacred prerequisite for the foundation that will bear the weight of my coming glory. Let me speak now of the new things I am bringing forth. I will not leave you with only the language of inner process. I will speak of what this refining fire is preparing your hands to receive. I am opening doors you have not yet perceived. They are not the doors you have stared at until your eyes grew weary. They are fresh pathways arriving from directions you were not watching. Your focus was naturally fixed on the horizons where you had invested your tears. These new doors will carry the unmistakable seal of my deliberate design. They are crafted for the person you are becoming. They are not fitted for the wounded version of you who organized life around pain. They are fashioned for the healed version who is increasingly anchored in the truth of my original creation. Your specific provisions are already in transit. I know your financial needs in absolute detail. I do not view them as vague categories of human hardship. I know the exact numbers. I know the precise timing. I know the specific gaps creating the deepest pressure in your days. I know what is due. I know what is approaching. I know the exact distance between the two. I am working within that gap with the boundless resources of heaven. I do not operate within the strict limits of visible economies. My provision may not arrive through the channels you anticipated. It rarely does. The unexpected route bears the unmistakable signature of divine orchestration. It will arrive. It is already journeying toward you. The relationships that matter most to you are under my careful tending. The fractured bonds are being worked upon from within the hearts of both parties. You cannot manufacture this grace. I am weaving it in secret. You will witness the gradual thaw of what has been frozen. You will feel the softening of what has grown hard. You will see the return of willingness where resistance once stood. I will never force the will of human hearts through coercion. Love that operates by force ceases to be love. Yet I am creating conditions. I am working in the hidden chambers. I am arranging circumstances to make restoration possible for every willing heart. Your physical health and your mental clarity and your emotional peace all rest under my active gaze. Every system in your body was designed by my hand. I know its current state in perfect detail. I know the places of lingering pain. I know the accumulated physical toll of years of sustained stress. The restoration I am working in your physical frame follows the exact pattern of your interior renewal. I move from the foundation outward. I address the root beneath the symptom. I do not merely manage the surface. The healing of your emotional life is itself a profound physical restoration. The soul and the body are woven together more deeply than mortal wisdom understands. As the inner man is renewed, the outer vessel will reflect that wholeness. You are entering a season of genuine flourishing. It is not the hollow performance of well-being that exhausts the spirit. It is the authentic fruit of a life aligned with the design of your Creator. It is the kind of season where your labor feels deeply meaningful. It is the kind of fellowship where relationships breathe with truth. It is the kind of trust that rests on solid rock. It is the kind of joy that rises unbidden from a well no longer buried under heavy stones. This is the purpose toward which I have been guiding you. Every season that felt like delay was holy ground. Every wound that demanded attention was a sacred altar. Every wall that needed dismantling was part of my holy architecture. Every room that required clearing was preparation for a life more fully alive than anything you have known before. The fullness of that life does not depend upon your perfect completion. Healing is always a sacred journey. Yet the life available to you at this exact stage is already richer than the life you have lived behind the locked doors. The wound was profoundly real, yet the wound does not become a permanent barrier. The wall becomes a testimony in the hands of the master builder. It declares that a broken temple is being rebuilt by one who excels at restoration. I will give you a vision to carry into the ordinary trials of coming days. Picture a sanctuary that has weathered a severe structural trial. The edifice did not collapse entirely. It sustained a serious impact. Cracks appeared in the walls. Chambers were damaged. Certain areas were sealed off for safety. The building still stands when viewed from a distance. Yet a careful observer sees the hairline fractures in the stone. They notice the slightly altered alignment of the doorways. They see how certain windows no longer seal perfectly because the frame has shifted. Inside, you would find functional chambers where daily life continues. You would also find rooms marked with signs forbidding entry. Those sealed chambers are not empty voids. They contain the original furnishings displaced by the impact. The light is dim because the windows are barred. Dust settles because no one enters to stir the air. Beneath the debris, the original architecture remains intact. The floorboards are still solid. The load-bearing walls are still true. The ceiling still spans the space. The original purpose of the chamber has never been canceled. It has only been covered. You are that sacred sanctuary. The events that caused the damage were real. The doors were sealed. Life continued in the accessible wings. Yet every day since the sealing, the closed chambers have waited. The master builder does not walk past your life and despair over the cracks. I approach your threshold. I draw the precise instruments of a craftsman who understands your unique architecture. I enter with quiet authority. I begin clearing the debris of the impact. I re-establish what was true before the storm altered your shape. I repair the fractures. I restore the displaced stones. I seal the exposed breaches. I open what was sealed. I return the room to the full measure of its original design. The restored chamber is never inferior to one that never faced the storm. It is far more glorious. It carries a history that an untested room can never possess. The labor of restoration shines in the renewed quality of the space. This is exactly what I am accomplishing within you. I work chamber by chamber. I apply the precision and patience the work demands. I work with the devotion of a builder who chose your specific life. I chose it not because it lacked damage. I chose it because its foundation possesses the quality that makes restoration possible. I chose it because your design makes the labor infinitely worthwhile. I will tell you one more truth concerning the people you will comfort as your healing deepens. There are souls in your future who will encounter you at the precise moment they need, someone who has walked the exact path you have walked. Some are already in your circle. Some have not yet appeared. They will not need a scholar of pain. They will not require a counselor with theoretical understanding. They will need someone who has entered the dark room and found the builder present. They will need someone who discovered that restoration is possible. They will need someone who emerged carrying a grace that only suffering can forge. Your story is never a liability. The history of your closed rooms and your constructed walls is not a flaw in your calling. It is the very credential of your ministry. It is the element that makes your presence genuinely valuable in conversations about sorrow. The testimony of one who has survived the same fire carries a weight that mere sympathy can never match. The witness you are building declares that the builder came. It declares that the work was accomplished. It declares that the sealed rooms are becoming habitable. It proclaims that the wound was real, but it was never the final wall. It announces that the walls are coming down, and what lies beneath them is whole. That testimony will reach hearts that no other voice can touch. Trust the sacred process. Trust the master builder. Trust that the season of renovation builds toward a reality your healed self will see clearly. Your still healing self must hold it by faith. Yet that faith is anchored in perfect truth. Everything I build is good. Everything I construct endures forever. Before I release this word over your life, let me speak directly to the fears that have circled this season in silence. You fear you have waited too long to begin healing. You fear a divine window has closed and the optimal moment has passed. You fear what was possible earlier is now forfeited by the years you spent in waiting. That fear is a lie. There is no expiration date upon my healing grace. A wound carried for 20 years is not more resistant to my touch than a fresh injury. The one who brings an ancient scar to me often brings it with a profound and honest weariness. That weariness creates the deepest capacity to receive grace. You have exhausted yourself trying to maintain the containment. You are ready to lay the burden down. The length of your carrying never determines my power to heal. My capacity to restore is never diminished by the age of your pain. You fear your specific wounds are too unusual for general grace to reach them. That fear is also groundless. I do not offer a generic remedy that treats only the surface of common human struggles. I know the exact configuration of your history. I know every event and every voice and every word and every precise moment when the damage was inflicted. The healing I bring is tailored to that exact specificity. It is not a standard response to a category of sorrow. It is particular attention to your particular inner sanctuary. The builder who works from an eternal blueprint knows where every beam bears weight. He knows where every pipe runs. He knows where the unique character of each chamber originates. The renovation is specific because your original design was specific. You fear you will begin this process and find yourself abandoned when you open the sealed room. You fear you will risk entering the darkness and discover total solitude. That fear has kept more doors locked than any other. Hear this truth with absolute certainty. I am already inside that room. I have been present within it since the very moment it was sealed. My presence does not require you to unlock the door from the outside. When you finally turn the handle, you are not inviting me in. You are discovering that I have been there all along. I have been waiting in the dark beside you. I have kept faithful company with what you could not yet face. I have honored your wounds with my presence long before you could honor them with your own courage. Open the door and discover you have never walked alone. Rest securely in my presence. Allow the tension you have maintained to dissolve into the safety of my nearness. Loosen your grip just enough for the builder hands to take the weight. Let the sealed chamber begin to breathe. I am just outside it. I am patient as the first dawn of a long-awaited spring. I am ready to step forward whenever you turn the latch. Whenever that moment arrives, I will be standing there. I have always been there. I will forever remain there. Carry this truth as the days continue to unfold. The wound was real, yet it was never a permanent wall. The walls were constructed for survival in harsh seasons. Yet walls are not your destiny. They are temporary structures. They can be transformed by a builder who loves the sanctuary more than he fears the difficulty of the labor. Healing is not a reward you must earn. It is not a performance you must perfect. It is not a mystery you must fully comprehend before it can begin. It is offered to you right now in the middle of your exact circumstances. It is offered with your exact history. It is offered in your exact present condition. Receive it freely. Accept the warmth of this abiding presence. Let the love that has surrounded you from the beginning reach the chambers it has not yet entered. What will be built from this moment will be worth every hour of clearing the ground. The builder is absolutely faithful to complete every work he begins. The blueprint is more beautiful than your imagination can yet conceive. What awaits you on the other side of this healing is the deep longing of your soul. Rest in the peace of the Almighty. Let your spirit settle into eternal quiet. The morning is coming. Amen.